We're going live. It's Friday, 29th of May. It's 5 minutes past 5. I had a Macintosh system upgrade overnight and somehow it lost the external microphone, but we seem to have it back on, so sound is good. We can get up and running once again. So as always, what I'd love to see here in the chat, we have 37 people connected at the moment. If you just stick in the chat, where are you from? Where are you connecting in from? And I can see here Pete all the way from Australia. It must be at 1 in the morning there, Pete. Russell from around the block. Carlos from Madrid. Ignacio, que bueno tenerte aquí. Jagannath, we're not audible. Is the sound still struggling? I'm showing sound output here. Can I get a confirmation? Can you hear the audio? Just say yes, can hear audio in the chat. My streaming software says audio is going out. Bit frustrated with how I've been running this 12 weeks in a row, and getting the Mac set up to stream onto YouTube has been a technical challenge every single time. Reno, great, you can hear. Daniel DeVries, yes, you can hear, good. We have audio, but it's low. Let me boost the audio up a little bit, but I don't want it to get too noisy or blast. Right, I think we have audio. So you can hear me. Let us know where you're from. Smail from Leeds, Omar from Mexico, Nova from Saudi, Dr. Happiness. That's a good name to have. Shadi from Jordan, Reno, great to have you on here. Maharaj from India, I love India. Greetings from Slovakia. And we'll switch back to our chat cam here. So the aim of this session, I think we've been going through, if we pull out my list of Vistage's 7 beliefs about great leaders. Great leaders reject shortcuts. Great leaders work not just in the business, but on the business, not in their life, but looking at planning where they're going on the life. Seek other perspectives. Stoke curiosity in themselves and others. Have discipline and develop disciplined systems around them. Mentors, know how to trust people, know how to identify who's worthy of trust, and know how to build relationships with people worthy of trust. And they rise by helping others. And our focus for today is going to be on leaders rise by helping others. And we will be looking for as many questions, thoughts, reflections. Use the chat. Let us know what's going on. I see a few more coming in. Neil from Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've got a lot of relatives there in Bangor, just south of Belfast. Nicholas from Switzerland. Ruslan from Ukraine. Charlotte de Montreal. Maharaja, good. You also love Ireland, Spain, Europe. We have Pablo from Madrid. Hope Madrid is opening up. Here in Barcelona, we're able to go out on bikes. We're able to do exercise. For the last few days, the bars and the terraces are starting to open up outside of cafes. A few days ago, myself and my daughter, we were sat on the beach in a chiringuito bar, having my first beer on the beach. And it felt kind of strange to be coming back to normal life after this almost 3 months inside this building. And one of my worries is how to not let my life get busy again. I feel that in some way this time I've been forced to slow down, forced to be with my children, with my wife, forced to be here with myself. And there's bits that have been frustrating, but there's bits where I've really enjoyed not being in a rush, not being a taxi driver in a car, and just being here. And knowing where I'm going to be every Friday. This commitment to 5 p.m. on a Friday, connect on here. Before coronavirus, my calendar was often so messy that there was never a weekly commitment to anything. And I'm definitely thinking a lot about how to stick to some level of non-busyness as the future comes up. And well, we're going to switch over here to the talk cam here. And what I wanted to talk about today, we rise by helping others. And Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, which, if anyone who's known me for any length of time has heard me say this is one of the most important books any human being can read in their life. And the book, Man's Search for Meaning, it's not a huge book. The first half of the book is Viktor Frankl's autobiographical story about his life as he was captured by the Nazis, put into the Auschwitz prison camp system, where he survived for 4 years. And when he came out the other end of these 4 years in the concentration camps, 1 in 32 of the people that had gone in at the same time as Viktor Frankl were still alive. And Viktor said it was not luck. It was not luck that led to those 1 in 32 people being alive at the end. There was something that you could see present in the lives of the people who were able to survive the concentration camps. And the second half of Viktor Frankl's book is his initial description of logotherapy. And logotherapy is Viktor Frankl's process for how you can identify the why, the purpose in your life that is strong enough that no matter what crisis hits you, your purpose, your sense of identity is strong enough that it can overcome any challenge. And we've lived through some challenging times over the last 10 weeks. Nothing like war, nothing like a concentration camp. There have been death, but in a way it's been very remote from me. So by no means would I want to compare the coronavirus, the decisions that businesses have had to face, the decision that politicians have had to face, to anything like a war or anything like a concentration camp. But it definitely pushes us to take decisions. And when you're forced to take decisions, I think there's an emotional burden of taking decisions. And when there's an emotional burden to taking decisions, that's when you need to have clear who you are, what your purpose is, to guide you in those difficult times. And Viktor Frankl, in the second half of this book, talks about 3 sources of meaning that you can have in your life. And the first source of meaning that will be strong enough to get through whatever challenge faces you is to serve somebody else, that somebody else needs you. And Viktor Frankl said that in the prison camps, in the concentration camps, there were people that knew that their children were out there somewhere, and that when this is over, they will need me. And that thought that I'm not surviving for myself. I'm surviving because there's people outside who are going to need me around when this is over. That thought and that purpose was strong enough that no matter what they faced any given day, it wasn't big enough to stop them. And the second of the sources of meaning was a project only you can complete. And in the case of Viktor Frankl, he had begun the scribbled notes that today is the book Man's Search for Meaning inside the prison camp. He had it written on little bits of pencil on little sheets that he'd saved on in his clothes to keep it. And he knew that his testimony of the concentration camp and his initial thoughts around this idea of logotherapy, helping people to find meaning, if he was not to survive, this work would not make it to the world. This testimony of what he saw happening, and this testimony of seeing how certain human beings raised up, and no matter how painful the environment, no matter how cruel the guards, how cruel the system was, they retained their humanity. And he knew that he must survive to publish this book. And that was what kept him going. He was not thinking, can I survive today? He was, I need to survive to get this book out to the world, to let people know what happened here, and to let people know that there is a path to discovering a why for you that is strong enough to deal with whatever comes. And the third source of meaning that Viktor Frankl talked about in the book Man's Search for Meaning is a difficult one to explain in words. What he calls it is you learn to find meaning in the suffering itself. And the first time I read this book, I really did not understand what it is to find meaning in the suffering itself. And I suspect, even now I have very little similar experience to what he must have experienced going through the concentration camps. But now sometimes when I'm going running and my mind is saying, your knees are hurting, your lungs are hurting, watching the way that I have the choice to push through that pain. Haruki Murakami, who is an author and an ultra runner, he runs 80-mile long marathons, and he says pain is guaranteed, suffering is optional. And this source of meaning is learning that there's, no animal would push through the pain by their own choice. There's something that only a human can do, which is to choose to go into pain, choose to go into something that is difficult, choose to make their life more difficult now for some idea of the future. And no animal, no other creature on this planet is able to make sacrifices in terms of pain today in order to be something better tomorrow. And I guess this exploration of what it is to be human, Aristotle said, each object, to understand its purpose, you need to understand what it is uniquely good at. And what are human beings uniquely good at? What do we have that no other species around, and no plant, no species, no rock has? Aristotle's answer was our imagination. That imagination is the unique human skill. So I guess, combining here on this session of we rise by helping others. The first is Viktor Frankl's number one source for meaning in the world is identifying the people that you want to rise up through your life. And I was on a long bike ride this afternoon with my daughter, and as I was cycling along the Diagonal and out into the countryside, I was thinking about this conversation now, and thinking about we rise by helping others. And one of the thoughts that really struck to me is, there's nothing left of us in 100 years except the memories of the people who we have touched. And those memories may be poor, those memories may be good. And I do think in some way we get to choose what type of memories we leave, what type of impact we leave on the people around us. And so Nicholas here saying, choose pain today for a better tomorrow. I guess, Nicholas, my big question is how to differentiate stupid pain from beneficial pain. And that's one that at my 47 years, I've still not totally got cracked. I think I definitely still need help from mentors and guides and people that have gone before to tell the difference from stupid pain that is just pain and good pain that is taking me on a road to somewhere good. And probably over my life there's been a number of times, certainly in relationships, where we always have the choice to ask for forgiveness or continue to fight. And when I was 20 and I got into a fight with a brother, a sister, a girlfriend, I would choose to fight and fight and fight. And I guess that's neither choosing pain for a benefit, it's choosing to increase the pain now. But what I'd like to go back on the Viktor Frankl idea, this idea of one source of purpose that can get us through whatever crisis, is having very clear who are the people that we want to make their lives better. And on my courses very often what I will ask people to do towards the end is write down 5 names of people that you want to be an inspiration for. 5 names of people that you want to live the next 12 months in such a way that those 5 people have more clarity about what is important to them. They have more energy in their life to do the things that are difficult, maybe in this case Nicholas, to face the pain that is necessary for them to be complete in what is important to them. and really just to help them be the best version of themselves. And there's a couple of things now I want to talk about on the word helping. So Faisal says that sound is a bit low. I'm going to turn up the sound a little bit more, but I don't want to risk getting into distortion zone. So we've got the sound a little bit higher there. Faisal, thank you. So I clearly need some technical training still on the world of YouTube, live streaming, Streamlabs and OBS. So what I'm going to talk about on helping, and helping is a very open word, and often in our helping we actually do damage to the person we wish to help. And I think Jagannath, good to hear, good sound. Helping, a good leader doesn't take away people's problems. So helping, sometimes our child faces a problem and they need to face this problem and learn that they can deal with it themselves. And sometimes I see parents who make a real deal out of arriving 15, 20 minutes early every day to pick up their kids from school. So imagine there's a kid, and every day their experience at the end of school is they come down to the gate of school and their mother is there or their father is there waiting. And when they're 4, it happens every day. When it's 5, it happens every day. When they're 12, it happens every day. And then one day when the kid is 15, after every single day, your parent being there the day you get to the school gate, you're 15 years old, you get to the gate and your parent isn't there on time to pick you up. And the 15-year-old bursts into tears and has a breakdown in front of their friends. Who was the parent showing up early for? For themselves to feel good about who they were as a parent? Or for the kid? And I think that there's often that our way that we think we're helping another, it is shielding them from a problem that they're going to have to face at some stage. And there's certain problems that a child at 4 cannot face, and we need to shield them from. But there's certain problems that as a leader you need to let people deal with it themselves. And for me, in Spanish we have what we call the 4 antis: empathy, sympathy, apathy, antipathy. So empathy is this degree of help. Empathy is, I see your problem and I see in you the capacity to overcome this problem. Maybe you don't see inside yourself the resources and the capacity to overcome the problem you have, but I do. I look into you and I know that whatever problem you're facing, if you look, you'll find the resources in yourself and in the people around you and in the tools around you to be able to face your problem. Sympathy is, you come to me with a problem and I say, oh, poor you. And I see in you someone who doesn't have the capacity to overcome this, or I doubt whether you have the capacity to overcome this. And when I look at you with pity, when I look at a student with pity, when I look at my children and I feel they're too small to deal with something, I think this is a very damaging communication. I may not say it in words, I may not even think it rationally, but the sense that somebody doesn't have the capacity to overcome the problems that they're facing is a dangerous belief, because no matter how well you hide it, some part of it is going across to others. And if I don't believe you can, it takes a lot of strength on the part of a child or on someone working with me to remain convinced of their own creativity, resourcefulness and capacity if I doubt their possibility of overcoming it. So empathy is whatever problem you bring, I have a deep sense that that problem is in your life to help you grow. And if I support you to get clear on who you are, what the problem is, what resources you have, what the outcome state might be, what paths you could use, who else you could pull on. If I help you get clear, I'm helping. But if I take the problem away from you, the universe is just going to send you more problems until you figure it out. Sympathy, feeling pity, feeling that someone's too small, feeling that it's too dangerous for them to confront something. It's a very dangerous place to put yourself. Apathy. I think no human is born apathetic. But if you as a parent, or you as a team leader at work, or you as a teacher in a school, have this sympathetic way of engaging with people, where each time they come to you with a problem, you take some of the problem onto yourself. You take some of the emotional baggage of the problem onto yourself because you feel they're not big enough to face it. I'll take some of the problem, I'll take some of the responsibility onto me. After 10 people have come up to see you, you're now exhausted because you're handing away your emotional energy to the problems of other people. And after 10 people have come and you've taken onto yourself their burdens, you don't have energy left for the 11th person and you're burnt out. And apathy is you're not interested in seeing anyone. And apathy is you start to close your door, you start to stop taking calls because you just haven't got energy left to take on any more problems. And if people are still able to get to you, so maybe you've closed the door but they can still phone you, or they can come in, or other people find a way of coming at you. And I know with children, you can close the door, they'll find a way of getting to you, they'll find a way of bringing their issue, and they're brilliant at bringing attention to their challenges. For me, I learned a lot in teaching in a business school about seeing how people bring problems and try and give them to me. I remember someone said to me once that a lot of managers, every meeting is a meeting where their staff bring them and hand them over problems. If you as a manager, if you have a leader, in meetings don't have a way of ensuring that you don't get handed problems in meetings, those meetings are not to help your team be resourceful. They're meetings so your team can hand you their work to do. And a lot of people are very smart and good at this. But it's you with your attitude of help being a type of sympathy, help being I'm stronger, I'm better, I'm wiser, I can do something that you cannot do. And if you stay in apathy and people still get to you, then you hit antipathy, where you're angry and you're frustrated and you deliberately push people away. And empathy, I think you've got to get deep down a mindset that no problem is going to kill a person. The problem that someone faces, what it took me a long time to do is really get to a state where I know that whatever problem someone is facing, I deeply believe that they have the resources in their life to get through it. It might take a long time, it might take a huge effort, but the person they will be when they get to the other side of this problem is the person they need to be. And if I as a leader, or if I as a parent, or if I as a teacher take away their problem now, it's only going to come back in a much more painful way later. So often I begin my classes at IESE Business School, I say to all the students that training should be harder than real life. If in my classes you suffer less than you would do in a day at work, I'm not preparing you for the tough days at work. My objective as a teacher is that this time together is some of the hardest, most difficult, most challenging time, because in the gym, and to me training is going to the gym. It's not real. Training is where you get yourself strong enough that you can deal with bigger problems out there in the world. If you go to the gym and you lift heavy weights, then you're strong and ready to go and face bigger problems. But if you go into a gym and you just sit around, and your personal trainer says, no, don't worry, you chill, you have a cam. The first time you hit a heavy weight in the world, it's going to be too big for you and you're going to break. And my attitude as a teacher is, if someone says, Conor, I'm really struggling with this, I need some more help. I say, well, you have half the time. I say, what do you mean? I say, what I want you to do is struggle more now when we have this support system around you. But my job here in this room is not to be your friend, is not to be your supporter. It's to create an environment where you can see how much you can grow, when you can switch off the little excuse in your head and dedicate yourself to figuring out how you're going to get through to the other side. I love that there's an idea that mountaineers, if you climb a mountain is a great teacher. And the reason a mountain is a great teacher is it accepts no excuses. You can't bargain with a mountain. If you are too high on the mountain when a storm comes in and you don't have a coat, there's no bargaining with that mountain. You're going to freeze and you're going to have a really tough time. But if you survive, you will never go to a mountain again without a coat in your bag. I think a lot of teachers, a teacher is often drawn to teaching because they want to serve others. Serving others is not taking away their problems. Serving others is helping them see the size of problems they really would be capable of taking on if they were dedicated to dedicate themselves to really getting clear on who they are, what's most important to them, and where they can take it from with that. So I think this idea of empathy, sympathy, apathy, and antipathy, I know often there's a lot of questions when I go through this in class. So in the chat, any questions, any quotes, anything that clarifies this difference between empathy, sympathy, apathy, and antipathy. And an empathetic relationship is one, it's almost the perfect coaching relationship where a coach is never going to do the work for you, but a coach is going to help you get clear where you are, where you want to be going, what resources you have access to, what task needs to go first, what steps would go there, how do I get belief that I can get from where I am to where I need to be, or at least get belief that I can take the first step. And often you don't need to see all the way to the destination to begin a journey. You only need to see the first step to begin. So a coach or a leader needs to get you into a state where you see where I am, why I want to get where I'm going, what it might look like, and what's the first step, and get going and trust that if I take that first step, I'm going to learn a bit, adjust a bit, and it's going to be worthwhile. So Banin, so let's switch back to chat cam here. We have a few chats coming in, so let's see, going back. Banu from Turkey, hey, great to have you on here. Wahida from Paris, Faisal, Pank sound is good. Ksaba from Hungary. We have some Arabic script, which I, if this quarantine were to go on for a few more weeks, maybe I could learn a bit of the Arabic script. It's beautiful to look at. It looks almost artistic, but sadly I can't turn that into the words and the meaning behind. Marlene, good analogy with the gym. And I think, school should not be a place where you become weaker and softer. School should be a place where you're asked to push yourself. Although I think one of the things that there's a friend of mine has started a school, and one of the first exercises they do with the kids, and the youngest that kids can join his school are about 12 years old, and one of the earliest exercises they do with the children as they enter the school is what they call ikigai. And ikigai is a Japanese concept of how to identify your purpose, and it's the union of what you're good at, what the world needs from you, what puts you into flow, and something else. But it's sort of a Venn diagram of you are good at it, the world benefits from it, you enjoy doing it, and something else. There's a blog post on my blog about meaningful contribution, and that's a Venn diagram of I love to do it, I'm good at it, others value it. So for me, there's certain things. For me, it's playing piano. I love it, I'm not good at it, no one benefits from hearing it, so that's a hobby. Then there's things that I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy, and no one benefits from it. To be honest, reading. So reading, sometimes I enjoy it. then there's things that the world needs from me that I don't enjoy and I don't really want to be good at. So sending out invoices, running a company is a lot of bookkeeping and accounting and keeping the details, and I hate it. So understanding what are the set of things that you want to be good at, you enjoy doing, and the world needs from you. And I guess there, the greatest service a leader can give you is to help you identify what's in the middle there. In fact, it might be worth, I'll get a bit of paper out here and draw up these three. So let's switch over back to our talk cam here. And so if we have, there's our Venn diagram. Love it, good at it, and world benefits. So something that you love doing, something that you're actually competent at, and something that the world benefits. And the world benefits means someone's willing to pay you money for it. Because the only real test whether your service helps the world is that someone is willing to pay for it. And perhaps this idea of empathy, sympathy, apathy, and antipathy, I really worry about idealisms. And I think where you're trying to help the world, it's too dilute. Where, for me, one of the training courses that most impacted my life was the breakthrough experience with Dr. John Demartini. And one of the concepts that Dr. John Demartini shared with us was that the universe is perfect, it's in balance. That in some way, the idea that gets into all of our heads when we were young about chemistry is, often on the wall of a chemistry classroom when we were young, when I was young, are these pictures of balls connected with sticks. And we had this idea that a molecule is a ball connected with a stick. So these are atoms connected with sticks to other atoms. And that atoms had balls inside, neutrons and protons and electrons. And as we've been developing quantum physics is the closer you get down, if you try and measure these balls, their energy, if you try and weigh them, they're waves. So depending on how you look at them, a quantum, it's a wave. So at the core level, an electron is a wave, and a wave has an up and a down. And the base unit of our universe has a bit of negative and a bit of positive. And Demartini's attitude to the world is everything acts like this. Any action I have can't be purely good. If I regret something from my past, if I feel shame of an action in my past, it's because I'm looking into my past and I'm seeing only the negative outcome from my perspective of an action in the past. What I'm not seeing is that there was also a positive action of something in the past. So maybe things I've regretted in the past, like breaking my word or letting someone down when they needed me, what I see is only that I broke my word and I let someone down. What I perhaps didn't see is that they learnt resourcefulness, they found someone else stepped in and helped them, they realized a relationship. So any regret of mine is that I'm looking and seeing only a part of the impact that I had on someone else in the past. If I'm proud, if I feel proud of something that I did in the past, it's because I'm only looking at the positive side. I'm neglecting to look at what was lost by me stepping in and taking this action. And maybe there was a beautiful story shared in one of my classes about 2-3 years ago, and the story goes by a student. He was 13-14 years old, and one week there was a school art competition, and he just didn't get it started, and he was coming up to the deadline to hand in a piece of art for the school art competition. And his father, in order to help him, drew the picture for him. And you can imagine the father seeing the child struggling. The father's good at art. The father draws the picture and gives it to his kid, and the kid hands in his father's artwork as his own. And this artwork's pretty good. And a few weeks later, there's an assembly at school, and they're handing out prizes for the art competition. Third prize is handed out, second prize is handed out, and this 13-year-old is sat in the assembly when he hears the headmaster name the winner of the art prize and call out his name. And he has to walk all the way up to the front. He has to come up onto the stage. He has to smile and pretend that he's proud as he receives the school prize for the best artwork of the school art competition. And he has to say a few words about what this means to him. And he said, I think this guy actually brought this trophy into our class to show it to us. And what this trophy was the biggest burden in his life, because for most of his childhood he couldn't admit to anyone of his friends or any of the school that he had lied that his father had done the artwork. And that trophy that sat on a shelf and others felt proud that he had won was a huge burden to him all of his life, because he knew that it represented a lie. And I think there, as a 13-year-old, if your father was to step in and do the art project for you, it's very hard to stop them. And this idea that sometimes the best help that the father could have done at that point is to let the child fail the course for not handing in the work. Because then later on, when a more important project comes up, they're going to remember the pain of having let themselves down. And I find this a very difficult balance with my daughters, of identifying where to let them face a challenge versus where to protect them a little bit, or where to structure it a little bit to help them. And what I face as a challenge with my kids, I find it very difficult at work as well. I think my first decade at work, I started in a company called Accenture. And I remember age 21 walking across Waterloo Bridge to begin my job in Accenture. Accenture is a management consulting company. It was very much what they called a meritocracy, which is if you're good at your job, you get promoted. And so what I remember of Accenture was a good manager is smarter than all of the analysts. And when I was a manager in Accenture after 5 years working there, if my boss came into the project and said, "What's he doing?" I would say, "He's on phase 2, he's about 60% complete." And I had huge pride in knowing more about what everyone else was doing than they did, and people coming to me to ask for help. And after 10 years in that environment, my ego really loved being the smartest person in the room, being the person that others came to solve the problems that were too difficult for them. And when I left the world of management consulting, I moved here to Spain, did an MBA, and at the end of the MBA, I didn't go back to a salaried job. I began an entrepreneurial life. And my first few companies where I ran as an entrepreneur, I ran them much the same way as a manager in Accenture. I ran it as, bring me your problems. And it felt good to me to be necessary, that the companies needed me there in order to function, that without me, most of the big problems we wouldn't be able to resolve. But I think that style of leadership, what I developed around me, were a group of people that just as soon as they hit a problem, they stopped and they brought it to me. And they probably had to listen to me in an arrogant way, telling them how to do their own job. And I'm sure that developed apathy in them to be treated that way by me. It also developed apathy in me that after a year or two, I just hated my work. I would go there and just problems would come to me. And I felt that each time a problem came to me, my role was to be smarter than the person who brought it. And that's an exhausting role to play. And probably when I was in my 30s, I had enough energy to do it. But as you get older and older, you don't have that energy to be solving every problem. And now this idea of empathy, I learned it most teaching in the MBA program at IESE. And first year of me teaching on the MBA courses at IESE, I was near to the same age as the students. I was a smiley person, so I was probably quite accessible. And a lot of students would come up and ask all sorts of questions during and after. And I felt it was my responsibility to have an answer for every question. And I remember I would go to the classes and have in my inside pocket A4 printed schedules of where each person should be, what next week's schedule was like. And as each question came to me, I just felt this nervous need to be able to give a good answer to every single participant. And after a year of teaching in this way, I was very close to giving up on teaching because it was just exhausting. This feeling of having to be ready to answer a million different types of questions that might be about logistics, might be about grades, might be about assignments, might be about why I gave a certain grade on a homework, about what is expected for next week, what is expected for a month, about who can't attend this next class. And this feeling that I had to keep track of all these things was exhausting me. And I think at the end of a year of teaching, I was about to give up as a teacher, because between running a business that we'd had a couple of rounds of venture capital and teaching at IESE, my workers and my partners in my business were angry at me for leaving lots during the working day, and the students were feeling that they would always have more questions. And I just reached the point where I decided, as a teacher, a question on logistics, we're going to have to make sure that there's something on the door. That's not something I can address. And I got to the stage where I decided, the only thing that I really need to know about as a professor is how to help you make use of this material for yourself. And what I work with every student to do is, when you come into my class, I want you to pick a project that's important to you. And if you ask, how do I communicate better? I will say, tell me about your project. Tell me about the challenge you're trying to deal with in your project. And I will only address answers to the specific way of how we help you better deal with the specific project that you have in front. If you have a question about theory, if you have a question about logistics, if you have a question about when the homework is due, that's available somewhere online. That's available on a notice board somewhere. And I'm not going to answer. And I think the other thing I realize is, the moment I give an answer about what time class starts this afternoon, I'm going to get more questions about that. At IESE now, if someone comes to me and says, how long is this break? Is it 15 or 20 minutes? I've got a practice blank stare of, do I look like a walking notice board? Check your binder, check the wall, ask a friend. I don't know. I know when I plan to be coming back, but I don't know the schedule for this. But if you have a question about how to apply the material we're working on to moving your life forward, that you're going to get my full attention. And I guess, probably in my company Vistage, this distinction between where I will engage and roll up my sleeves and help versus where I will actively disengage and let you figure it out for yourself is an exercise to one degree in great leadership, but more an exercise in a realization that if I make my own job torture for me, I'm going to give up eventually. If I'm not actively ensuring that every relationship around me at work is at least neutral and ideally positively fulfilling, I'm going to burn out. And if I'm going to build something that has a lasting impact on this world, every day I need to wake up and do work that I enjoy doing with relationships or with people that I enjoy being with. So I think if you can take care of these details and get clear where you're going to let other people face their problems, where you're going to get in and help them clarify their resources, and where you're going to just stay well away because it's not even your issue, that begins to help in terms of your own emotional labor. I think, on the back of my coffee cup here, as a reminder to me, I've written a poem that I often attribute to St. Francis of Assisi, the wisdom prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And it says, "Give me the strength to change the things I can change, the patience to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference." And very often in my role as a leader, it's help the other clarify, what can you change? What actions can you take now that can make an impact? What can you not change? And let's just push it out of the way, get rid of it. You cannot affect it. Right now, coronavirus, you can't change it. You're not a doctor, you're not a vaccine researcher, so you cannot change it. So what can you change? And for me as a leader, helping people take their mind and focus in on, I am here, I want to get there. What is under my control? What's under my control, and I can take action now to move towards that. And maybe it doesn't get all the way there, but doesn't matter. What's one action I can take now that moves me in that direction? And if as a leader you can just help people distinguish stuff I can affect, stuff I cannot affect. There's actions I can be taking to increase my influence in future, and there's actions I can be taking to deal with the things that I can change now. I love Mother Teresa has a saying, if all the world kept their own doorstep clean, the whole world would be clean. There's too many people pointing out other people's doorsteps that are dirty when their own doorstep is dirty. And for me, as a leader, is step back and think, let's clean our own doorsteps and make sure that everyone around me has their own doorsteps clean before we start to point out the flaws in anywhere other and what their doorsteps are like. So let's have a quick look back into our chat, and where are we at? So we've currently got 87 people connected, and why are we not seeing much update in the chat here? 87 connected, and coming up to the last few minutes of our live stream here. And what I'd love for you to do, Dina, that's a good question. What does it say about me as a teacher if a student is bargaining for a grade? Have I failed him? That's a question worthy of discussion. Let me find a way of getting back. So, Dina, what does it say about you if a student is bargaining for a grade? First, it says they care. And I think that is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that the student cares about the grade. What I try and do when a student cares about the grade is take that desire to do well and take it away from the grade and channel it back on to, who are you and why are you doing this course? And what do you want to take from this course? And, for me, sometimes getting an A is a dangerous thing because you can then learn to coast. What I learned when I was 14 years old, I remember doing some homework, handing it in to Eric Maths, and the grade came back as 11 out of 10, 11 points out of a total possible of 10. And it really struck me. I remember I went up to see Mr. Matz to say 11 out of 10, you've made a mistake. And he said to me, no, 10 was for the best work that I expected. You went beyond the best that I had expected. And to this day, that idea just shook my idea of grades. Grades are someone else's idea of what's possible. And I know that in a lot of schools and universities, you need to get the right set of grades to get on to the next thing. But if you ever think that grades are the objective, that grades are the purpose of school, then someone needs to sit down with the teacher or with the student and help them understand that grades are there to structure your work, but they are not the purpose. The purpose needs to come from you and a decision of how you're using what you're learning here towards improving yourself. And for my daughter, she's 13, and sometimes will come to me and she says, I got a 9, and a big smile. I got a 6, and a disappointment. I personally think that she's going to learn a lot more from getting an unexpectedly bad grade at this point, and having to think about her approach to the work, about the quality she put in, about what the teacher was caring about. And I don't worry so much about A's in terms of worry about her consistency of understanding what she wants to get from each subject. But grades are here, they're not going to go away. We are going to rank people, and I guess I find it very difficult in IESE that we're forced to give A's to 10%, B's to 60%, and fail 10% of any group, and deciding who's to fail, deciding whether it's on effort or whether it's on absolute results or on whether they grew from where they started to a different place at the end. It's so hard to make these judgments, and hopefully I try and diminish how important grades are and heighten how important taking good stuff for your own life from my course is. But Dina, it says about you as a teacher that you've got them to care. And once you get them to care about grades, take that caring and channel it in to what's important to them, what are they taking from this, where they want to take themselves. The question that I love from Dan Sullivan, 3 years from today, what needs to change for you to be fulfilled personally and professionally? And I guess every teacher, it's 3 years from today, where do you want to be? How are you taking something from this class that will feed towards the changes that you need to make to be where you want to be in that better place 3 years from today? But Dina, the great thing is that they care. Once someone cares, then you can channel that caring into a good place, and you can have that conversation about what grades mean and why it hurts them so much to get a bad one and why they feel good about a good one, and how that's a dangerous thing to value A's and not value C's. I think failing on something important for your life is a lot better than getting A's on something that doesn't matter for who you want to be. And one of the real crappy things about school is you have to pass everything. In life, you got to be good at one thing. The person who is brilliant at one thing is the one that makes all the money, that has all the fame, that has the great impact. You don't need to be mediocre at 50,000 things. One or two things where you are the best in the world. My friend Raul often says, you don't need one thing you're best in the world. You need 3 things that you're moderately competent at, and you just cram them together to create a cocktail that makes you uniquely good. So I think, for me, Dina, knowing, in your adult life, choosing where you're not going to put energy is a more valuable skill than being able to pass a bunch of tests. But yeah, Dina, I guess it all depends on, perhaps have to get grades to achieve an outcome, to not be told off by their parents. So as with everything in life, the answer to most questions is it depends. So we're coming to the last minute here. What I'd love for you all is just one idea that you take from this and the other sessions that we've been doing together. One idea that resonated, that from these Fridays that we've connected here during Quaranstream, during quarantine, one idea that resonated, one idea you'd like to take, and just stick it in there. So Neil, hey, have a great weekend. Hope Belfast is doing well. I can definitely feel the sun starting to come here in Spain, and looking forward to going out and having a beer on a terrace. So Karmveer Chowdhury, you reached the level because things you've done the way you worked. How can a young professional I'm not sure I understand completely, Karmveer, the question, but I guess there's some habits of our past. Sometimes we'll need to change them for the future. For me, the book Atomic Habits by James Clear is one of the best books that I've read on habits. So Karmveer, look up Atomic Habits, get the book, read the cliff notes. So here, Nicholas, I will enjoy that beer. It's been a long time coming to sit on a terrace, couple of friends, and have a draft beer. It's not the same going to your fridge, opening it up and pulling out a beer and opening the bottle. I think there's something here in Spain special about sitting on an evening on a terrace and just watching other humans around you. Jagannath, reject shortcuts. And Jagannath, that was something that I did not understand as a young person. And very often I desired to quickly achieve certain results. And I think it's very dangerous to achieve quick results. There was a comedian, and she was asked for her advice, and she said the worst thing that can possibly happen to a young comedian, exposure before you're ready. Most young comedians spend 10 years struggling on dingy, dark stages, practicing their material before they get the first 5-minute slot on the Johnny Carson show on the big TV network. Those 10 years working in the dingy clubs are absolutely necessary so they don't blow it when the big lights switch on. The worst thing that could happen to a young comedian is after 6 months of telling jokes, they get put a 5-minute slot on the national TV show, and when the lights go on, the pressure's so much and they're not ready. For me, one of the biggest speaking events that I had, let's just switch back here. For me, I when I first began speaking to groups, I had a dream of speaking to stadiums of 50,000 people. And one of the first keynotes that for me was a really big deal was I gave a closing keynote at Entrepreneurs Organization Global Leadership Conference in Athens. And this is 1,500 entrepreneurs coming in from all around the world, entrepreneurs that I hold in high esteem. So this was 1,500 people that I really cared about what they thought about me. However small and immature that might be, I really cared that this speech went down well. And I remember, I'd been speaking probably for about 10 years before this opportunity came up. And I was given 12 minutes. So I was going to have a 12-minute speech. It was called a reduced TED Talk. And I remember I showed up the day before in the empty, the Megaron Stadium in Athens. I just remember it had this huge rows of seating that rose up to the heavens. I was there the day before, came out on the stage, went through my whole speech, made the timing into an empty hall. There was one guy listening and he said, yeah, that was pretty good. The next day, I was there early, and this time there was lights on, and I remember when I came out, and in fact, the speaker that was going to speak after me she could see that I was nervous, and she came over to me and just touched me somewhere on the shoulder, looked me in the eyes, and said, it's gonna work. You're gonna be great. And I remember afterwards just thinking, I'm sure she was feeling all the tension and stress I was feeling, but yet she at that moment, instead of thinking about herself, reached out to me, connected to me, and told me some encouraging words that I needed to hear in that moment. And ever since, I thought I want to be the speaker behind the stage who does that for others. So if I'm ever preparing to give my keynote and I see others getting ready to speak, I want to be the one that goes up to each of them and just says, hey, you're the right person for this. They've got you here and they know, and if you just do your thing, tell your story, it's what needs to be done. You're going to be brilliant. But she said that to me. I remember hearing my name being announced, and I came out expecting to see 1,500 people, and what I saw was giant spotlights blasting down on me. I couldn't see anyone or anything, and for the first 3-4 minutes I was just speaking into light. I had the sense that behind that light there's some people, but I couldn't see anyone. And I had this almost sense of out-of-body experience, that my mouth was talking and my consciousness was out somewhere else, in a bit of a panic because I couldn't see anyone. I didn't know how this was going. And about minute 8 of the speech, there was a moment where I come and I sit on the front edge of the speech, or front edge of the stage, and it was the first time I kind of went just below the floodlights and I could see all the people. And I remember being so aware at that moment that if I hadn't been speaking for 10 years before this moment, if I hadn't been on stage after stage, in Toastmasters meetings, in classrooms, anywhere that was willing to hear me speak, entrepreneur startup events, boot camps, all those years of speaking for free, speaking wherever I could get it, they all came to play that day. And I delivered that speech in 12 minutes. I had practiced it enough times that I could run it on autopilot. And I never want to speak on autopilot again, but that to me was huge exposure, but it came luckily when I was ready to deal with the stress. And I guess here the idea of a good teacher, and not all teachers that we've come across in school or university are good teachers. There's a lot of people who have the title of teacher, but they do not care about teaching, they don't care about learning. It's a job. So don't think that just because you've never met someone that inspires you as a teacher, or you've met a lot of people who had the title of teacher, but they didn't appear to care about your development, your growth, that there's not value in teaching. And so often you don't need the title of a leader to be a leader. You don't need the title of a teacher to be a teacher. You need someone who cares and be there and be patient, be willing to support them to get clear where they are, clear where they'd like to go, and clear that everything they need to get there is within them if they're willing to put the effort in. So on that note, I can see we've got quite a good bit of chat coming through. What I would like to say is thank you. We will see you next Friday for another live stream. So maybe just one final word as we close down this session. One final word as we begin the weekend that just captures your state of mind as we're here. So if you put one word that captured just your state of mind right now, what would that be? So Charlotte, makes me understand life and the world better, also increase self-awareness. Great, Charlotte. Daniel, thank you. Yes, what I often say at the end of a course, I'll tell students, it is not allowed to go home and recommend this course. It's not allowed to go home and tell people about what you've done in this course. The only thing that is allowed is to go home and go to work and live your life for the next 30 days in such a way that at the end of 30 days someone says to you, what changed? You're different. You're bringing greater energy and clarity and conviction to the things you're doing. And only when a friend or a colleague or your wife or your child says, What's changed? You're different. Can you talk about the course that we have been on together? I don't care what you learn up here. I care what you take up here and you bring it back, and with the people that matter in your life, you're able to live a much better, more convicted, more convincing, more engaging life. I've been listening to an Indian guru called Sadhguru, and I love the way he talks. I love the way he thinks. I love the way he answers questions. But one of the things he talks about is be engaged in life. That the way to have a fulfilling, huge life is be engaged in every little thing. And I think if you're engaged in every little thing, that's important. Not every little thing that isn't important, but the people that matter. And that doesn't mean every single person. That means a chosen group of people that you are willing to give your life to helping them get better. If you can engage with them and put your energy with them and focus that energy, your life will definitely rise up. Stefan, excited. Pete, clarity. Ayaz, thanks. Devotional Clinical de Alma. Uberaba, Brazil. Alba, marvelous. Pleasure to have you here. Rathinam, mindful engagement. Russell, great to have you here. Ruslan, great to have you here. Anami, pleasure to have you here. Hopefully we have another coffee in Turo Park before too long. Wahida, confused and lost about teaching. Good. Being confused and lost and knowing it begins the search for answers. The enemy of learning is thinking you already know. Confused and lost is a great place to be, because you're going to begin seeking something to fill that emptiness. Banin, great. Anime, good. We'll get on our Brompton bikes and meet there. So we're going to close down our live stream now. Thank you so much for filling up my Friday with a moment of communication. Have a great one. Anime, have a good one. End the live stream over here. And end stream. Have a good one.